Welcome on in. This is the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast for NFL Conference Championship weekend. We're down to 3 total games remaining. We got 2 this weekend, of course, the best Sunday of the year. Couple of matchups that I think we could have, on the AFC side, we certainly could have envisioned a Bills Chiefs rematch. At the beginning of the season, I had my doubts about the Bills. I of course, am keenly aware that nope, they're very, very good. But they have to go into Arrowhead and kind of slay the dragon, as it were, to get past Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, who are going through for their three-peat. But before then, we also have got Commanders Eagles. So we're going to break that game down as well. That one a much more surprising matchup, whether you're looking at beginning of the season or even entering the postseason. With the Commanders is kind of on this amazing run right now. So we will start there. We will start in Philadelphia, kickoff at 3 o'clock Eastern time. We've got the Eagles 6-point favorites at home at the Link, minus 278 on the money line. 47.5 is the total for this one. I mean, you can't really talk about this game without talking about what happened last weekend. And I think specifically on the Commanders side of things. What did you see on Saturday night from Washington, and maybe what maybe they carried over from the latter parts of the season that could give Philadelphia some trouble here?
Well, as they've done all year, Dan Quinn and especially Cliff Kingsbury called a really good game. I don't know what would be there to criticize about it. Pretty close to perfect game plan. Just little details having huge swinging effects on the game. They seem to have this ability to just peel off unlikely outcomes in succession over and over and over, both within games and over the course of multiple games. I still feel like if you apply the rules of year-to-year volatility and regression, and specifically on things like one score wins and losses, fourth down in the red zone outcomes, and the point swings that can come with whichever ways they go. These things are eventually going to regress at the expense of Washington, but it hasn't happened yet. And last week would have been an exactly right time for the regression to set in, going on the road against a team that's supposed to be better than them. It would have made sense for the ball to kind of like stop bouncing their way. But as they Washington keeps going with these, really smart, but still very aggressive game plans to kind of just go for it on fourth. They have clearly a good reason for that. It's not just they're doing it belligerently, like they have a plan involved, and you can tell they've built this whole offense kind of on the assumed schedule of many fourth down attempts on offense. And they've correctly, it seems to me anyway, like they correctly theorize, like we can take chances to X extent, whatever, as long as we're getting you within to these downs and distances and these parts of the field and whatever else. And especially when you have a quarterback, you see something, not to jump ahead to the other game, but you see something similar with the Bills and Josh Allen as you do with the way Washington utilizes Jaden Daniels in these situations where they know they're going to go for it on fourth if it comes to it. And when you have that inside outside rush threat and the passing threat as well, I think you're seeing, at least this year, it's kind of impossible for NFL defenses to face a quarterback of that set of traits and stop them from getting 5 yards and 3 downs. Like it just seems like it's not possible, or it's not likely. And Washington's been kind of hammering that all year. Buffalo kind of did too. It's just in a different way. Obviously, it's like Josh Allen does the power running, whereas Washington tries to leave the power running more to Robinson and leave more outside off tackle threats for Daniels to run. But I think as much as they're doing all this stuff very well, and as much as it's a lot of why they've been as successful as they are this year, I still don't think the level of competition has been very high on their schedule. Even Detroit, great upset for Washington by any measure, but just as pretty much, any record you look at in this league, and I guess I'm fixating on the NFC South this year because I was so irritated by Tampa Bay and being just running for their lives from the easiest division title in maybe league history. And you see a team getting in like the Buccaneers and had a lot of playoff hype, and I think that's an 8-8 team. Back in the day, like that's a 9-7 team back in the day. This should not be one of the most feared teams in the league. Pretty much all the teams in the NFL right now at their respective ranking perch are the worst in some number of years for that slot, in my opinion, and the Eagles included. But whereas I think the Eagles are kind of like an 11-5 team, I think Washington's more like a 9-7, 10-6 team. And rather than a 14-2 or whatever, 15-2, whatever the Lions were, the Lions should probably be more like an 11-5 team themselves in a truly competitive year for the NFL. So I think not to say the Eagles are infallible in comparison, they definitely are fallible, and seems pretty safe to say that Jaden Daniels is a better passer than Jalen Hurts by some maybe significant degree. But I think I'm picking the Eagles to win it nonetheless. And the reason definitely doesn't have to do with the quarterbacks. It's more to do with the respective power run games and the respective defenses. And I think Washington's kind of feisty on defense, and Dan Quinn's got them ready to go, max motor every play. But I just feel like you can't get away with some things forever. And one of those things is stuff like, Dante Fowler being like your best pass rusher, stuff like that. It's like, no, that's 8-8 stuff. That's not good enough.
No, it's not. And I think it is an interesting like juxtaposition between these two teams. And obviously there's the added wrinkle of these two teams having played each other twice this season. Although, the Washington win in DC, comes with Jalen Hurts getting dinged up in that game. You get Kenny Pickett in there. The Eagles still kind of dominated that game, but Washington found a way to win.
Short fields. That's how they won.
we pulled the stat back in December when that game happened. Like with the set of conditions working in Philadelphia's favor, teams with those setups were like 375 and 3 since the Super Bowl era, like just kind of dominating that game, or not even
call it the Kenny Pickett effect.
Yeah. So we're not going to run into a situation quite like that once again. And I think whereas Washington got all these turnovers last week, and some self-inflicted on the Detroit side, I don't see them convincingly, at least on paper, convincingly winning their turnover battle in such a way that it totally swings the game. And I think, additionally, really bad timing for an interior offensive line injury for Washington. I think Sam Cosmi is going to be out for the rest of the season. And when it already probably wasn't the best offensive line and interior offensive line in the league already, like the Eagles are just built to smash teams like that. When you have Jalen Carter, when you have that front seven, when you have Jordan Davis, coming in for 20, 30 snaps, it's really, really difficult. I think we're going to see a lot of Jaden Daniels under pressure, under duress. I don't think that they're going to be able to run the ball, at least conventionally, all that well. So on paper, this feels fairly cut and dry in favor of the Eagles. I'm still a little bit skeptical of them if they do advance to the Super Bowl against either the Bills or the Chiefs. But, they should take care of business here. But it's really, when I weigh this out in my mind, it's like the Eagles are extremely good, but Jaden Daniels is also extremely good. And that at least gives Washington a shot here. But I do wonder if kind of what you were alluding to earlier on in the analysis, where the stuff that Washington's been getting by on kind of runs out here.
Right. Again, I think you can at once give Washington all the credit and still acknowledge that they've been pretty lucky all year. And luck doesn't always run out in the playoffs, but it seems to me like they've been having their upper range outcomes occur more reliably than pretty much any team. And Jalen Hurts was all so even when they had Marshawn Lattimore, the Washington defense, when they had him covering AJ Brown, Jalen Hurts did not exactly look good in that game, but AJ Brown was still kind of beating on Lattimore pretty easily, and Hurts was getting him the ball too. So you get the AJ Brown plus Saquon plus that offensive line plus that defense. I think that's just a lot for any team to deal with reliably, especially in the playoffs. It's like the colder it gets, it's going to make that Eagles defense that much more difficult to deal with, because it just makes the field smaller, and you don't want the field to get smaller with the interior defensive line presence that the Eagles have. It's like you want to get away from those guys, and I definitely expect Washington to have a really good game plan. I think you can say, and this is a shocking turn of events for me anyway, I think you can say Washington's coaching is pretty clearly better than Philadelphia's, but I just feel like the Eagles are a more complete, intentionally completed product, and Washington is more so trying to kind of, they're trying to accelerate their build and their ascent. But I think it's realistically, they might need a little time to keep building that roster before withstanding teams like this Eagles one.
Right, exactly. So the upper range of outcomes thing happening this year, like it is something that's hard to quantify. And if it regresses next year, it's going to be tougher to get to this point. They won't be sneaking up on teams that maybe the way that they did this year. But I don't know. It should be an interesting game. I really don't know which way to line it up. I'll take the Eagles just on the sense that 1 through 22, they are the stronger side in this matchup than Washington. But I wouldn't be completely stunned if this Washington run lasts another couple of weeks here.
Yeah, I guess I would say the more passing yards it takes to win this game, the better for Washington. I don't know. I guess I see too many paths where the fortune kind of just bends towards the Eagles side of things, whereas for Washington to do it, they kind of need to keep hitting half court shots, basically, which they've done, but I just can't. I personally don't expect it to continue.
Even the best shooters from long range are in the NBA, 45, 50%, if that. I mean, that might even be. So yeah, it's tricky to maintain the level of needle threading that Washington has been able to accomplish over the season, and of course in the postseason as well. Let's get on over to the AFC side of Sunday's action. But before then, we do have a message from our pals over at DraftKings Pick 6.
We're proud to be brought to you by DraftKings Pick 6. So many NFL offerings each week over at Pick 6. Been enjoying playing on the Pick 6 platform each and every week of the NFL season. Think a certain quarterback will throw for more than 300 yards. How about your favorite receiver scoring a touchdown? Check out Pick 6, the newest way to play fantasy football and win cash right now with DraftKings. Here's how it works. Just pick 2 to 6 players of the same sport and choose if they'll have more or less of a given stat. Yards, catches, touchdowns, etc. Lock in those picks and compete against opponents for a shot at huge cash prizes. Download the new DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use our code ROTOPICK. That's ROTOPICK. Again, ROTOPICK, ROTOPICK. If you're a new Pick 6 customer, play $5, get $50 in Pick 6 credits guaranteed. Just use that code ROTOPICK. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-78-89-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
Much appreciated to our guy Nick Whalen, spreading the good word of DraftKings Pick 6. Let's get on over to Arrowhead. Sunday evening, 6:30, the main event. We got the Chiefs and the Bills. Chiefs 1.5-point favorites in this one over the visiting Buffalo Bills. Weather should be hovering around freezing for most of this one, but not too big a factor, especially not for these two teams. As far as the opening line was concerned, it opened at 1.5 in favor of the Chiefs, and it has stuck there. pretty much on the consensus. The total has come down just a touch from 48.5 to 47.5. We had both totals for Sunday, pretty much consensus set at 47.5. Chiefs, they're, what else can you say? I mean, they're going for their three-peat. They look like they've woken up after kind of being able to hibernate for the first 3 or so months of the season and still not really pay for it in any appreciable way. And the Bills have been battling. They've been playing great. They come out last week. They start hot. They answer that opening drive from Baltimore, kind of dominate the rest of the first half. Make the most of the opportunities that they got. Second half got a little bit dicey for them, of course, but a win's a win. They got it, and now they're on to this Chiefs team. What are you seeing in this matchup now that these two have squared off earlier this year? Relative to how they've been playing of late.
It's tough for me to think through because this Chiefs offense is so much different. Suddenly, this last few weeks, not that I expect Travis Kelce to stay, playoff Travis Kelce, even though he flipped the switch last week and immediately went from pretty much useless to, of course, playoff Travis Kelce. So, I guess, though, with that said, you do have to expect playoff Travis Kelce more than you can, cross your fingers and hope he stays away. So the Bills presumably will, especially after last week, make Kelce either the initial or among the initial key concerns for this Chiefs offense here. But this Chiefs team has been giving the most targets and snaps to Xavier Worthy pretty much all second half of the year. Even though he has not been terribly efficient with it, I still think he's more useful as like a decoy and jet sweep kind of guy. But if they all of a sudden give more usage and snaps to DeAndre Hopkins and Marquise Brown, then I think they become even more dangerous. And I definitely think that the speed is a key there. So it's not that I want Worthy off the field, but I want Worthy and Brown and Hopkins on the field at the same time. And I think with that speed threat between Brown and Worthy, you can probably put the Buffalo defense in the secondary, specifically the corners, specifically in some difficult spots, because while the Bills among the linebackers and maybe in the front seven in general, excuse me, like with linebackers like Matt Milano, Terrell Bernard, you can see there's a deliberate trade-off between massiveness and the ability to anchor set and take on blockers, and they're trading it off for kind of gap shooting and coverage, maybe even more so. And I think Sean McDermott reasonably kind of was banking on this formula where it's like, we get these kind of cheap money ball guys at the corner position who are basically just physical, know how to jump routes when they're thrown in front of them, and play disciplined football otherwise when they're given zone coverages. But what the Bills did not do specifically was try to get man coverage corners. Like Tre'Davious White, they have nobody like that at this point. Rasul Douglas, Christian Bedford, they're system corners, and if they had to cover as much ground as some other corners and some other offenses, they'd all of a sudden look too slow to play corner. Both of those guys are bigger than and slower than a lot of safeties throughout the league. So when you put speed like Marquise Brown and Xavier Worthy on the field, I feel like that's such a profound degree of speed that it's sort of to the defense, it puts them on notice that like you got to treat this just a little differently. If you try to work to the rhythm of other offenses that you've played before, you're going to be a step too slow, and it's going to be embarrassing how badly you get outran on this play. Like, again, guys like Douglas and Benford just cannot run with speed like Worthy and Brown. So and just the same, if the Chiefs let those guys stay underneath in a pouncing position in front of Rasul Douglas and Christian Benford, then they're just playing to the strengths of those guys and to the designs of the Sean McDermott scheme. So I think while the Chiefs will probably do a lot of two tight end stuff, if only for the sake of getting Noah Gray snaps and getting some advantageous run concepts set up there, I think to hurt the Bills' pass defense, you really need to start airing it out like the Chiefs basically have not in a year or more. So is it a bit much to think that the Chiefs maybe do air it out a bit more the way that I'm describing, then also have some success doing it? I guess not, but they also haven't done it in forever, so I can't tell whether to expect that. And meanwhile, I think if the Chiefs kind of do this very horizontally oriented passing game that doesn't really attack downfield, that's playing again into McDermott's hands. Like McDermott and the Bills have been building that the whole team and the defense to respond to the Chiefs. They're building a team that's specifically for beating the Chiefs in a game like this. And if the Chiefs don't kind of change the game a little bit, I think that they could find basically Mahomes getting just the same numbers he has all year, which are needlessly poor in my opinion. And if that happens, I'm not going to say that means that the Bills win, but it does make it their best chance to do it so far among any of their playoff trips with Josh Allen.
So before we get to breaking down the rest of this game, we do have a message from Live Golf. New season of Live Golf Fantasy is coming in 2025. New prizes, new ways to win, and more are coming in the new season. Get ready to play and sign up now at fantasy.livegolf.com. We also got a message from our friends over at Blue Wire. And we're back. I do think that, you make a good point where, we've had most of these ingredients, or I don't know. You get Rashee Rice being out for so much of the season, Xavier Worthy, seeing steady stream of usage. You get Marquise Brown back in the fold late in the season, and coming in like all across the summer, we talked about how the explosiveness could be back in this Chiefs offense, but unlike how it was last year, where they kind of just nickel and dimed, death by 1,000 paper cuts their way to another Super Bowl. We thought that they'd be a lot more explosive, and they just haven't been. And there's like a sense of like almost like hubris when it comes to the Chiefs, where it's like, can they really just kind of hang out during the regular season and then just flip this switch during the playoffs? Can they really afford to have a game plan that's saved just for the Bills in the AFC Championship game? It's hard to say, but it hasn't really burned them at this point. So I'm extremely interested in the point that you're making there, where it's like, how do they attack this Bills defense, and do they use that speed advantage to
John,
open things up? Yes.
If looking at Mahomes' numbers going back to last year, if you were just doing kind of like a blind test or whatever, and you were shown these numbers, these consecutive year numbers of 7 yards per pass, 67% completed, 26 and a half passing touchdowns per year, 12 and a half or whatever interceptions. There's no way, right, that you would look at those numbers and accept the bet that like this quarterback will win 2 Super Bowls. You probably wouldn't take the bet that he'd win 1. Right. Yeah. This year too, Mahomes under 7 yards per pass attempt. That sucks. That's basura. That's terrible. And I think you gotta assume that at the very least the question facing the Chiefs now is either it's a matter of either they flip that switch like you were describing, or this is a team running on borrowed time as far as like having actual Super Bowl ambitions. This is a trick that will only work so many times. It doesn't withstand regression very well. And granted, yes, the Mahomes factor, I know he can become in one drive, one moment, something that was not there the rest of the game or whatever else. But they basically need the refs to make up the difference, or they all of a sudden need Mahomes to start producing like he did 3 years ago, which to me is largely as simple of a matter of putting the actual best personnel on the field. I think that going back to the hubris thing, some of the limitations and difficulties of the Chiefs offense the past 2 years are definitely self-administered by Andy Reid. I mean, I know this is the kind of thing that's going to make people completely lose their minds, but like, have you noticed that Xavier Worthy's numbers this year still are not particularly close to the efficiency levels that Mecole Hardman had Not even like Mecole Hardman his rookie year. Like Mecole Hardman his second and third years was giving them more yards per snap, higher catch rates, higher completion, higher yards per target. And they take guys like that off the field. They put guys like Justin Watson on the field. They get a guy like Xavier Worthy, who's a rookie, a young rookie, underclassman, clearly more developmental than immediately ready. And they dink around by just doing trick plays with Xavier Worthy while giving like 25 snaps to DeAndre Hopkins. Like that kind of stuff is hubris. And I think it also might be connected to why they can't seem to do any better as an offense. Is like ultimately, I think Andy Reid's kind of more concerned with playing with these little distractions than he is about putting a tangible result on the field. And Patrick Mahomes / refs have just kind of bailed him out every time it's come up the past couple of years, especially. So I think the switch, maybe it's not realistic for the Chiefs to be able to just flip a switch as in just become better than they were. But when the switch could be instead in the form of just featuring the right players on the right play designs, I do think in that sense, there is a very tiny, slight chance that Andy Reid is pulling a fast one on people like me, and we're going to get to this game, and Mahomes just goes like 450 yards to, Marquise Brown and DeAndre Hopkins going crazy every drive. If that happens, then I will have been had yet again. But I just don't think it's realistic. I also don't have like the courage to pick the Bills exactly, but I do. I think again, at the very least, this is the best shot the Bills have had against the Chiefs during this whole era, and I think it's by like a clear amount.
Yes, I think so too. I was trying to quickly look up some ref stats for this game. Clete Blakeman is going to be.
What type of pros? How good of handlers are on this case? Fixers, you
honestly, he is in the middle of the pack for most of these in terms of called holds, like 6 out of what looks like about.
Do we have like a narrative index on among these numbers, like the history of the ref crew to uphold the narrative for the games that they are handling?
There are articles about this. As I was Googling it, there's like a little Google carousel, and like all of it is analysis on how bad of a deal this is for the refs or for the Chiefs or the Bills. Doesn't really look like anything really stands out. Although, things can go out the window. One of the lower call volume of roughing the passer. I definitely anticipate that one going up. I could see his season.
Will go up on
roughing the passers. That's
only on the Mahomes side. Allen is subjected to that same rule. It seems like that normally only Lamar Jackson is, where it's like, well, you were asking for it because you were running or whatever.
Yeah.
But Mahomes can stub his toe and just say like, that guy. Mahomes could like bite his own arm and run up to the ref and be like, he bit me, and then just like, you're right, that's awful. Poor, are you okay? It's maybe the narrative is due to change. Maybe the refs will not be so deferent to the Chiefs, but that would be a change in policy if it does happen.
Exactly. And like the last thing I'll say on the Chiefs side of this, as far as the offense goes, is, last year going to the AFC Championship game, that was like the one year that they didn't have the 1 seed, so they had to go on the road against Buffalo and then into Baltimore, and they were a little bit more multi-pronged, I thought, last year. All told, like Kelsey still had some questions about how effective he would be, but if you're going to that game plan for Baltimore, you think Rashee Rice, Travis Kelsey, you got to limit those 2 guys. Mahomes found a way to complete 19 out of 20 targets to those 2 guys. So, I mean, like there's just a way in which Reid and Mahomes and Kelsey can just find a way to, despite knowing that the other team is game planning to stop specifically them, sometimes they still just find a way to wriggle free and render those kill shots. So,
and Spagnuolo, I know the last time these guys play, the defense just did not show up for the Chiefs, but I would not expect that to happen this time either. I would expect, as much as I'm concerned that the Chiefs offense will sort of make things needlessly difficult on itself, Spagnuolo, I don't think is going to let that like Gabe Davis game happen again either. Like he's going to be more the kind of playoff Spagnuolo we've become accustomed to. It's just, I think the difference this year, not in large part, is that Joe Brady has built this Bills offense that can kind of it can kind of like change shape, and specifically it can go into a mode where it's very run heavy, utilizing a variety of run concepts. And I think in past years, the Bills, even under Dable, who I think did a better job than Dorsey after him, they basically left too much on Allen and left when trying to answer the question of like, how are you going to win? How are you going to score enough points to win? They sort of just wrote Josh Allen ? Whereas I feel like Joe Brady has a pretty, he goes into games with game plans that do a good job of guessing how the defense is going to game plan too. But if situations, if things fluctuate, in the past, all that they could really do was just kind of keep jamming the Josh Allen button and hoping it works better this time. But they have more threats they can express this year. And I think the element of surprise is still pretty apparent with the Bills offense, which this late in the year is a big accomplishment.
So on that element of surprise angle, I've unfortunately still have a lot of Bills Twitter in my Twitter algorithm. It's been a rough few days, Mario. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that one, but
Man.
I think the fans like the misery of the host. It's good content, but alas, Amari Cooper lightly used since being traded over to Buffalo. Is this the spot?
I guess not. I guess I don't even know at this point why they made the trade. If they're just going to do this jumbo. They do this offense that's almost like 3 tight ends by the time Mac Hollins comes on the field, because I don't know what else he's supposed to do other than block and kind of like get in the way, set picks probably. But yeah, it seems obvious enough to me. You put Cooper on the field, you take off a player like Hollins, you put a player like Cooper on the field if he's healthy, is as simple as it seems like it should be to me. But I guess last week anyway, and if this is the case against the Ravens defense, I don't know why it would really change against any other. The Bills were able to run the ball as much as they wanted to, pretty much. Yep. And especially in a situational sense, they were really great at just getting first downs and just kind of having more time to sit on the ball. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think. I guess maybe you could say if the Ravens had not turned the ball over and had scored more regularly, more quickly, maybe the Bills would have been like, okay, bring out the Cooper. But I don't think that sounds that likely either, because even then you'd be like, well, why didn't you just put him in initially? If you think he's the way to score points, you put him on the field.
Right. So, the fact that it hasn't happened yet, it didn't happen in a game like last week that ended up getting as close as it did. Hard to imagine, dusting them off for this one. I think the Bills are just kind of comfortable with the rotation that they've been employing. I think you make a great point as far as that situational run threat for Buffalo. They were able to pick up those short yardage first downs pretty much at will, except maybe a little bit in the second half. The Ravens' run defense started to stiffen a bit. The Chiefs, their run defense not quite as good as Baltimore's, so that could be an issue as well. It's still very good, but maybe like a degree or two behind Baltimore's. But yeah, I think the way that these two teams are playing in the ammo at hand, as crazy as it sounds and as dumb as of a mistake as it's proven to be over the years, I'm going to bet against Mahomes here. I think the Bills win.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I'll take the Chiefs because I guess if nothing else, I'll point to how the spread is not really changing in Buffalo's favor, even though we're closing in on something like 2/3 of the public betting on Buffalo to cover 1.5 points. So usually that stuff kind of turns out a certain way, and there also is the chance that Andy Reid was kind of slow rolling the playoff offense, that especially with the weeks off, he can sometimes come up with a totally new looking team. He can do that even with one bye week. So I'll say the Chiefs, but I don't think that the Chiefs can score that many points. I think they kind of more so need it to be let's see. Not the under. The 48 is not that high of a total for these two teams, but I guess the Chiefs need to somehow win without going over 30 points is what I maybe would frame it as.
All right, let's lock them in. Our official predictions. Let's start with this game. Get the Washington Eagles one, and we'll get out of here. My call for this one. I like the Bills in the under. I will go Bills 24, Chiefs 20.
Nice. Yeah, I'll say the under, but the Chiefs, I don't know, 20. What did you say, John? For
I said 24-20.
Okay, let's switch those. Because I guess I got to pick those two numbers pretty much, but let's switch the teams.
Okay. We'll shake on that. And then Eagles Commanders. What say you?
I'm picking the Eagles to win, but it's something similar to with the Chiefs. It's like the higher the point total gets in that game, I think the worse it projects for the Eagles, who I just don't know if they really are built to air it out that much. But let me check the over-under real quick again.
I'll say 47.5.
I'll say Eagles 28-21.
Okay, so that gets us to the over. I like the Eagles in a similar neighborhood. I think that I'll go a little higher. I'll say 31. I'm going to say that Washington has a couple of turnovers here, sets Philly up in favorable field position, or even that they score on it. So I'm going to say Eagles 31, Commanders 17.
Oh, geez, the disrespect.
I know.
You got to send the internet goons after you now for the disrespect, John. That's what they're concerned about.
Well, where's Washington's Big Dom? Big Dom's going to take my side on this one, so I have nothing to worry about.
Yeah, we will reach out to Dom if it comes to that. So seriously, don't spam us.
Don't do it. We got guys. But that's going to do it for us here on this edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. Obviously, a bit of a shorter one with just two games, but we gave you all about 40 minutes of good, deep breakdowns on both of these games. Very much looking forward to this weekend. Sad that football's almost to the end of the season here, but I think we're going to be treated to some fun stuff here on Sunday. Big thanks to our sponsors over at DraftKings Pick 6 and over at Live Golf, and of course over at Blue Wire. For Mario Puig, I'm John McKechnie. Thanks for listening.